So first of all, I thought it would be perhaps interesting for people to find out a bit more about the role of the board of directors and also your role as chair.
Absolutely. So the board is its primary function really is to make sure that there is a separation of powers between what is the leadership team and that actually deliver operationally everything, all of the functions for British wheelchair basketball, and then the board sits sort of above and to the side of that, thinking really about strategy and long-term vision, and then supporting the executive team in the delivery of their roles. So we own a lot of the risks, so things like legal responsibility. So when we're talking about return to play for COVID-19, the board's been really heavily involved in some of that decision making. It's really important that that we support the executive team and in any way we can. So the board consists of at the moment about 10 members, some of which are sports directors, some of which are non-exec directors. And we're really blessed with a really wide-ranging set of skills and backgrounds which allow us to really support the executive team in their decision making.
Absolutely. And in terms of the skills, obviously you bring an enormous array of skills as well, because obviously you've come from a military background and have begun in the last 12 months, left the military and working in almost the civilian world. Mm-hmm. I suppose in your own words, would you mind just guiding us through your career, because it's involved many incredible things and it's taken down many different paths?
Yeah, sure. So obviously I decided at quite an early age when I was at school that I wanted to have an opportunity in a career where I didn't sit behind a desk and that I was outside and doing things. And so I decided age 15 that that's what I was going to do. I was going to join the army. And so I went ahead and went to university, and then straight after university, joined the army and went to Sandhurst for a year, and then joined the Royal Military Police, and spent 21 years in the military. I spent 6 years in Germany. I went to Kosovo, Iraq, Afghanistan, so seen all sorts of different things. I suppose the highlight of my career was my penultimate job, where I was able to command my own regiment as the Special Investigation Branch, which is almost like the major crime sort of wing to the British Army and to the service police. So thinking about the investigation of serious incidents overseas and also in the UK. So global responsibility with a team of about 320 people. So a huge privilege, but a huge task as well. So fantastic. I just had a brilliant time. I had, I didn't fall out of love with the military, but I wanted to see what else was out there in this big wide world. And so I took the decision to move on last year. And I'd been very fortunate that I'd actually joined the board just before then. So having this opportunity, that's helped my transition. I always describe my transition from military to civilian quite similar to athletes to retired athletes. So some of the challenges are very similar. And also for me, sport has permeated throughout my career. So I started off at a young age playing hockey, and then when I got to university, discovered rugby and was really fortunate to be in the right place in the right time, and played in the World Cup in 1998, played for Wales, and then went on to captain the army side for a number of years before retiring. I then went on to do things like obstacle course racing. I learnt martial arts. So you'll see there's like a physical contact aspect to all of those things that interested me. And I'm sure one of the things you probably wanted to ask me was why pick wheelchair basketball as a sport to get involved in. And I think for me, it's that physical contact, that competitive nature of the sport, which, is really, really appealing to me. And I don't live far from London Titans, and going down to watch them play, you just think, I want to have a go. I want to be in that chair and giving it a go, because it's physical, it's dynamic, it's exciting. And I just love the fact that so many different people can play.
So was the military something you always wanted to be involved in?
Not until I was a teenager. I didn't really know when I was very young what I wanted to do when I was older. But I went to a careers fair when I was about 15, and my sister at the time, my elder sister, was doing her A-levels. And so we went really for her benefit rather than mine. And there was this armed forces recruiting stand, and there was a guy from the Navy who literally looked a bit like Captain Birdseye. There was someone from the RAF, and I discovered that I was short-sighted, so I was never going to be able to fly, so that wasn't an option. And then there was this female army captain, And so okay, so what do you do? And she said, well, every year I go skiing, I do this, go sailing. And I thought, yeah, okay, I'll have a bit of that, thanks very much. And that was really what sort of persuaded me that that's what I was going to do, and that's why I was going to join. But I think more fundamentally than that, there is that idea of public service, of loyalty, of duty, and actually my core values are very much centered around there. And so, the role with BWB is very much giving something back. So taking, time to actually support a different organisation and be able to contribute and add, what I can to the running of the sport.
And in terms of the roles within the military, obviously, I suppose any role within the military brings with it an enormous amount of challenges. And I think it's probably fair to say that the military is often seen as being male dominated. So I just wondered what challenges you faced during your military career.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's really interesting because, if you looked at me now as a middle-aged white woman, you'd think, well, you're not in the minority and therefore there aren't any challenges there. But actually the environment that I was in, I was in the minority, and many occasions I would be sat in a meeting or, with 22 males and myself, and having a different perspective. And I think that, chimes across to my own view about equality, inclusion, and diversity, and why that's so important. So, I felt that I was constantly having to prove myself, having to be better than everybody else. So I was very driven and very ambitious. But that takes its toll after a while. And actually, you just want to be recognised for your worth and what you're actually delivering. But then I suppose it goes back to that comment we made earlier about transition. So one of the things I really found hard was that for 20 years I wore a uniform, and therefore everyone knew who I was and what I was capable of. And then suddenly you're in the big wide world as a civilian wearing normal clothes, and people don't really understand what your skill set is. So I've had to really sort of think about, where my strengths are and how I reinvent myself. I suppose in the BWB context, obviously, we're really keen to be an inclusive sport and be open to, all ages, all abilities. And therefore, how can I bring my sort of experience of what I've dealt with previously to make sure that going forward, we are as inclusive as we possibly can be. One of the things that's really important to me is to think about the board and what the makeup of the board is. And, we're great in that we've got some fabulous people with fabulous skills, but we want to make sure that we've captured all those different perspectives. So, we need to make sure that we've got the balance right between non-exec directors and sports directors. We need to make sure that we've got a range of ages, ethnic diversity, all sorts of different backgrounds to make sure that, we're bringing all of those different views to make, British wheelchair basketball as inclusive as it possibly can.
Absolutely, and you've touched on it there. What does, I suppose, equality, inclusion, and diversity mean to you as an individual?
So I think for me, it's about equality of opportunity. It's about having that landscape where people have a choice. So, and I often use my daughter in this example, in that my daughter was born profoundly deaf. And therefore she has her own challenges, and we make sure that we try and level the playing field for her. So it's about giving her all of the tools that we possibly can and all of those opportunities to make sure that she can choose to be or do whatever it is she wants to be when she's older. And so for me, that is a real passion. And so if I can bring that passion and motivation to the sport, and so that, we have an opportunity that anyone who wants to play can play, no matter what their challenge is, what their backgrounds, might be. That's really, really important to me. And so working with the board to see how we can take that forward. And it's, it's not something that we will say, okay, well, we've done that now. It's a journey. It's a constant evolution, and things will always be changing. But it's really important that we as a board have those voices that are coming into us so that we can understand, what those challenges are, because, I can only see challenges from my perspective with my particular lens, and there will be other people that have a different lens, and I need to make sure that I take those views on board.
And building on that, how important do you think equality, inclusion and diversity is within our sport?
It's hugely important because we are a sport that is so inclusive in that the range of people that can play, we need to make sure that everyone has that equality of opportunity. And so we need to understand what those barriers might be from all different aspects. And so that information and that knowledge and experience coming into the decision makers, be that the board and also the executive team, that's really important. And so, I really encourage people, and I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to talk to people, because the board needs to be connected with the membership. The membership need to know who we are and what we stand for, and that we're here and we want to fight on your behalf and we want to deliver things on your behalf. So, it's a two-way process. More than happy, I want people to tell me, what their views are, what they need, what they want going forward. What does BWB look like in 15, 20 years time? That's a really sort of strategic conversation that we're trying to have as a board, but actually, what do the membership want? And we're really, really grateful that we've got some fabulous sports directors that sit on the board. But we can still take more views, which is great.
Absolutely. And obviously in a few weeks' time, you're going to be chairing the AGM, and that's a chance for wheelchair basketball community and in the UK and also the BWB members to have their say. I've been involved in the sport now for just over 12 months. And it seems to me, I got that feeling straight away that wheelchair basketball has an incredible family and community feel to it.
Absolutely. And, I think COVID-19 has been a challenge on so many levels for everybody personally, for the sport, for our elite athletes. It's been really, really difficult. But what's been really fabulous to see is that the community has come together in a virtual sense, and that engagement, that ownership has been really, really rewarding, because actually to see that the work that you guys are doing as the executive and that's being embraced by the membership, that's really, really encouraging, because we want people to stay connected, and we know that people have a view. So, tell us what that is. That is really important going forward.
So what drives you and what motivates you?
So for me, it's about, and it sounds really trite, but I want to make a difference. So I just feel that I have an awful lot of energy, I have time to give, and I want to feel that I can do some good in the world. And, you might sit there and think, oh, gosh, how many people have said that in their lives? But I genuinely believe that, because, for me, I think that all of us as a legacy want to feel that we've left the world in a better place for our children or for those that come, after us. And I just think, it's about how can we make the sport better? How can we continue to grow? How can we continue to thrive? How can we, think about our performance aspect of our, sport? I mean, fingers crossed that, Tokyo happens and, then Paris and beyond. So that's one end of the spectrum. But then in the participation strategy and thinking about how, there are loads of people out there in the world that would love to play wheelchair basketball, but probably haven't been exposed to it, have no idea that they could. And, how do we move forward to work out how we can increase participation? Because everything is all sort of combined together. So I just think that, for me, I'm driven in a way that I just want to make things better. I want people to have opportunity. And, that goes for my own family and everyone else in the wider, community. So I just want to make the world a better place.
Absolutely, that's great to hear. And I think we've already seen that within the work that you've already been doing with British World Wheelchair Basketball and your role within the board of directors. So you spent 21 years in the military. How do you reflect on your time and over those years?
Oh, well, I mean, I was just really fortunate and privileged. I had the most fantastic career. I had incredible opportunities. I served in some fabulous places, but more importantly, I served with some incredible people and had, the honour to lead many of them. So I think the military left me in a place where I am disciplined, I am structured. For me, Having routine is quite important, but also, sticking to timings, getting things done. I like to think, but I also like to do. And so it's sort of bridging that strategic to the operational level, and how I can help, the team execute things. And I think, it's left me with some really key skills, and I thank, the Army for that. So my ability to lead, to bring diverse teams together and deliver team cohesion, but then also to think long term. I mean, the military is all about planning. So whether that be, what's the strategic vision for, BWB in 15 years' time versus, okay, right, we've got COVID. That was unexpected. This is now crisis management. What are the steps that we need to take to get through that? Where are the risks? How are we resilient? How can we continue to move forward? So those skills are things that the military absolutely ingrains in you. And so they're so transferable. To be able to lift that experience and bring that into another role, I'm really privileged to have had that experience. And I look back really fondly on my time. I still serve part-time as a reservist, so I do a little bit of work at Strategic Command, and I'm not sure how much time I'm going to have for that going forward, but I wanted to stay connected because I still have a huge passion for the military, what they do and what they stand for, and so that's really important to me.
And having spent so long in the military, and you referred to it earlier as a bit like like an athlete once they retire, moving into kind of away from that elite level sport. I suppose for you in the military, that must have been quite a difficult transition, or trying to adapt from that structured military way into the civilian world kind of thing. Just because obviously you before you left the military, you just joined the BWB board. How did the BWB, I suppose, help you to adapt once you left that military? Do you think it did play a key part?
Absolutely, because I think for the last 18 months, BWB is a constant for me, and it's been a thread that's run through what has been quite a difficult transition, really. I mean, I picked a right year to leave, didn't I? With everything that's been going on. So, I left last autumn, but, really finished work last July, just as I joined the board, and, tried to find my way in different civilian careers. And, and it's been really difficult because you spend 20 years wearing a uniform, and then suddenly you haven't got that uniform on, and you need to kind of experiment and work out where it is that you fit. And, I might have had aspirations in one area, but, you'd apply for a job and just get filtered out the first opportunity and think, well, why? I think I could do that. And so trying to sort of benchmark yourself into a whole different world and an employment environment was really difficult. So for me, that constant thread of having involvement in BWB throughout gave me an anchor, and with something that I was really passionate about. I always knew that when I left the Army, there would be something in my sort of portfolio of things that I was doing that involved sport. And so, that's been a real blessing because it's kind of kept me steady throughout. And also I'm surrounded by these incredible, inspiring people on the board and in the executive who will give me free career advice and say, well, hang on, Jules, have you thought about this? And so that's been absolutely fabulous. And everyone has been really encouraging, really supportive. And also now to have the opportunity as chair, I mean, it allows me to use all those skills that I learned from my military experience, and particularly during this difficult time, that's really, really important, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity.
And we mentioned earlier about the challenges of potentially working within quite a male-dominated career path, but also, I suppose, what kind of other challenges and I suppose that adversity have you had to, I suppose, overcome? Because obviously, I suppose, in a daily basis in the military, you're facing challenge after challenge after challenge. But in terms of, I suppose, adversity, what sort of challenges have you faced, and also what steps did you take to try and overcome them?
So I think in terms of the role that I had, it was all, and it's quite similar in terms of civilian policing. So you're never the popular person, are you, when you turn up to something? So it was always having that challenge of sort of trying to justify what we were doing and why we were doing it. And yes, it was important and it needed to be done. And it wasn't just because we were being difficult, because somebody had made a mistake and therefore we were just coming down heavy-handed as the service police. So it was always having to make those relationships. So communication is always really important, that stakeholder engagement and being able to form those relationships with people and how you develop that, and really sort of almost influencing people so that you can bring them on that journey with you, so that they really understand, what it is you're doing and why. So, those were skills that I really had to develop quite early on in my career. And, they could have been anything from, I remember having a situation in Iraq where, a number of weapons had been found, and someone who had been responsible for them had basically not looked after them and left them literally in the middle of the desert. And I had a young officer who said, well, we need to do this, and we should, we should make sure that the individual gets punished for their mistake. And I kind of took the view, well, I'd rather that there were 12 soldiers out there that all had a weapon if we need them, than actually we could confiscate these right now. So I think it's also, understanding about the fact that our role wasn't always black and white, that there's a degree of pragmatism that has to be taken when you're approaching that. And I think, you can lift those skills again straight into, BWB and some of the difficulties we faced this year in our decision making. There are elements of things that we've had to talk about where it isn't a clear-cut answer. So we've had to make sure that we know what are all the options, where is the risk in all of those options, and then which is the best outcome or possible outcome for the membership going forward. And I think that's why, the dialogue is really important, to make sure that, people understand that, we aren't just a bunch of people in a room making decisions in isolation. That's really important, that people understand, what we're doing and why we're doing it. But I think in terms of my own sort of tips for adversity, I think in any leadership role, you're only useful if you're looking after yourself first. So, and that probably sounds really selfish, and I haven't always been very good at it. But for me, making sure that you're, as a leader, that you're eating well, that you're sleeping well, that you're looking after your own sort of physical and mental health is really, really important, because if you can't look after yourself, you can't look after other people. So, and that's something that really stems throughout my career. We've all been to some, challenging environments in the military, some difficult, instances, some things that actually, will weigh quite heavily on my mind and have done for years and will always continue to do so. But, you have to find a way to process that information and rationalize that, and actually looking after yourself is really where you start.
Absolutely. And obviously mental health is a really important topic, and the pandemic has only increased the challenges that many people face. And you mentioned there, and actually I know mental health is a topic that you are incredibly passionate about.
It was really important to me in the military, and it's been even more important actually since leaving, because actually I've seen a huge growth in the way that the military are able to support people with mental health issues. So, that's a real positive for me. But, I was able to see how introducing some really what you might think are small practical measures can help people on a daily basis. And actually, when we think about what we as a nation have been through in the last 6 months, all of those things hold true. So, my current job, working for Amazon, I was really keen that, the four walls of my house were closing in on me, and I needed some social interaction. I needed to go to work. I needed to feel like I was mobile and I was doing things. And so that was, is a huge driver in, a change of career direction. But, I'm forced myself to make sure that I go outside and have a walk every day, or at least go and stand in the garden, and I'm fortunate again that I've got the space to be able to do that. But, to me, that is really important, to be able to go to bed at a decent time, to be able to eat properly, all those really small practical things that we all know will help our mental health. It's actually doing them. And I think, for the first two, certainly lockdown one, I didn't look after myself. And I had my children at home, homeschooling, trying to work full time. And it was a total disaster. And I'm sure there are many people that will listen to this which will relate to that. But, it was really, really difficult. And so, I learned my lesson the hard way by not being very well and having to move through that process and make sure that I did actually put myself first a little bit. And yes, sometimes it can seem selfish, but you can't look after other people if you're not fit to look after yourself. So you have to make sure that you look after yourself first.
And that's the thing, I suppose. How important is it that we keep talking about mental health, and also raising awareness, and also about the support that I suppose is available?
So I think it's hugely important. And I think that me leaving the military and the journey that I've been on in the last 18 months has really changed my view, even more so, that how important it is to talk about it. Because I think, we've gone from a place where mental health issues create this massive stigma to being in a position now where actually people recognize the value of talking about it and how it can really help. So, that is really, really important, to make sure that we continue to do that. And also, making sure that we look out for each other. I think one thing that people sometimes struggle in doing is that they struggle to express how they feel about things because they don't want to appear weak or vulnerable. And in fact, it was Lisa, the CEO, who said to me, about a year ago, she said, but vulnerability is your superpower, which is a quote that has always stayed with me. And she's absolutely right, because I think being able to share with people that actually we've all had difficulties, we can all be vulnerable at different times, and actually that's okay. That demonstrates to everyone else that we're a human being and that they can connect with us on a more human and personal level. And that you're not just someone who sits in a room and makes decisions that impact on everybody else without any thought process. So, this to me is just a great opportunity to be able to share my thoughts, and for people to understand a little bit more about me and where I'm coming from.
And it seems clear that sport has always been a big passion of yours, and has been something that you've been involved in throughout your life. Just how important do you think the power of sport is?
It's hugely important. And even, from the grassroots level and at the participation level, in terms of physical activity, mental health, connecting people, connecting communities, that's, massive, through to the elite level, to be able to inspire a whole nation. So it's something that connects all of us, whether we're playing, coaching, officiating, managing or leading, or even just sitting on the armchair and watching it. It's something that everyone can be involved in. And so, it's huge. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be involved. It's something that, makes us all feel better about ourselves and other people. And therefore, it's absolutely something that, I just, it's great to have this opportunity at this stage in my life where I'm too old and too broken to play much sport. So actually, I didn't think, when I retired from rugby, and I qualified as a coach and a referee, and then I found that I didn't want to be involved. I needed to take a step back because it was too raw. But I'm too old and I can't play anymore. And actually, now, having had a bit of distance from that level of sport, to be able to come back into sport in a totally different way and contribute and give something back and continue to be passionate about it is just fantastic.
What do you enjoy most about wheelchair basketball?
Oh, I just think it's the most energetic and dynamic and fast moving game to be able to watch. It's just, anyone can play, anyone can have a go, but it's brutal. And so, and And I love that about that because if you think about my background, doing things that are, aggressive and competitive, but that also involve a high amount of skill, it's just fantastic. It's a sport that ticks all the boxes. I just think it's brilliant.
And obviously you've been part of many teams, whether that's in the military. Obviously a team aspect is very important, but also across other sports as well. You mentioned the rugby. What do you think makes a successful, I suppose, efficient and productive team?
So my number one answer to that would always be trust. So trust in each other, trust in everything that you've done before in training, trust when you come onto the court and how you're all going to perform, and knowing that everyone is all, pulling in the same direction. In a team sport particularly, there will always be mistakes, things will go wrong, and it's knowing that you've each got each other's backs, and no one has missed that shot deliberately. So it's about how you trust in each other together as a team. That's absolutely number one priority.
And I think team aspect is just that amazing thing about the sense of achieving something, I suppose, as a team, as a group, and togetherness.
Yeah, hugely, because, you've all got a united goal at the end of the day. Everyone is wanting to achieve the same thing, and you've all got that same sense of purpose, and you feel part of something. I think, one of the things that is, for me, equality, inclusion and diversity is missing another word on the end, because it's all about belonging. And that's why being part of a team is so important, is because you have that joint sense of purpose. It's a unifying purpose, and actually everyone feels like they belong to it. And that's why it's so important.
I guess that's just the amazing thing about sport. It doesn't matter what your background is or who you are. Sport is just this incredibly powerful unifier, and none more so, I don't think, than wheelchair basketball, because regardless of gender, your age, your ability, once you're out on court, you're all part of that same team.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
So I suppose, obviously, you've been a leader in the military, and also now as chair of British Wheelchair Basketball. What do you think makes a great leader?
Compassion, honesty, vulnerability, but most importantly, perhaps knowing the people that you're leading. And that's why, this opportunity is really important to me, because when you know the people that you're working with, and the people that you're leading, you understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, where you can reinforce success and exploit those opportunities to get the best out of you as a collective team. So I think knowing your people has probably got to be the most important one for me.
So when you first got involved with the sport of wheelchair basketball, what were your first impressions?
Well, I was just gobsmacked about how broad it is in terms of the types of people that are playing and where it's played. And, you've got, from your GB athletes to, people who are playing at a local club, and it's also volunteer run, so there are people in the community that are so passionate with what they're doing on a weekly basis, to give up their time, to coach, to officiate, all of those aspects of it. So I think it was this, huge opportunity that to have this collective force for good, which I just thought was fantastic. And then obviously went down to watch a game and thought, yeah, absolutely, this is amazing. So, for me, I just think that it's a real opportunity to bring diverse groups of people together, and it spans our entire, community, and all of those different challenges and different things that could be divisive, which actually can bring us closer together. We can learn from each other's differences, and think that's really important.
I suppose I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. What is the most challenging part of your role as chair?
So I would say probably the fact that I have to lead and corral some incredibly talented people with amazing skills, and balance that opportunity for debate and discussion versus making decisions. And, when you're time poor, and you're trying to make sure that you get through an agenda and you get to the point where we've actually made some really firm decisions, that's a real challenge for me, is trying to, extract all of that knowledge and experience and all those skills from these people that we have in the board and use them and channel them in the most positive way, in the most time efficient and focused way to get a great decision and a great outcome for the sport.
And obviously this year has been incredibly challenging for everyone, including our sport and our members. But actually, looking forward, it's also an incredibly exciting time as well, because we unveiled our 5-year strategy and we're working towards that. Obviously, it's challenging at the moment, but actually, as I said, it is an exciting time to be involved in our sport.
Hugely. And I think, do you know what, if we can get through these last few months and moving through into the spring, what it's shown to me is that the resilience of our membership is huge. And I know it's been frustrating. And I've had several conversations about, well, if we could just get to this point in our return to play and we could feel that we could do this, things would be so much better. And I acknowledge all of that. If we can get to a point where we are through the worst of this, I just think if you can survive this, gosh, the sport's just it's that nugget of what could flourish for the future. Because, people have been incredibly resilient, incredibly understanding. The risks have been significant with our community because we have lots of vulnerable people that play our sport. And what we don't want to do is put them any more into harm's way than they already are with a global pandemic. And so balancing that risk has been really difficult. But there is so much to look forward to. There is so much in terms of the strategy going forward. There are so many opportunities. You're launching virtual clubs tonight. You've got the partnership with Cookery. There's so much going on that isn't even in the sort of the wider, community yet, that will all, start to come to fruition over the next 6 to 12 months. It's just hugely exciting. There's so much to do, but it's all moving in the right direction.
So what's your message to members, to clubs, to volunteers, to officials, to coaches, to players, everyone involved in wheelchair basketball currently? What's your message to those people?
So I think I would say thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing, particularly those that are volunteering and supporting the clubs. Thank you to all the players for their resilience in this really difficult time. And keep talking to us, engage with the board, engage with the executive, tell us what you want and allow us to help create those opportunities for you. So, turn up to the AGM, register, vote, all of those things. So be involved, continue to be involved as so many of you already are. And thank you for supporting, particularly the executive team and everything that you've done over these last few months where it's been really, really difficult. So thank you to the membership for that.
And also part of our strategy and our vision is to continue to grow the sport. And that obviously is a big aim of the organisation, but also a big role that you're playing as well with the board. So what would be your message to people who might be watching this video who are not involved in the sport? What's your message to those people about getting involved?
So get in touch, find out what the opportunities are, give it a go, find your local club, all of those things. And if it's something where you think actually maybe playing isn't for you, then how else can you get involved in the sport and how can we continue to grow that in terms of coaches and officials and all sorts of volunteer members that you require at a club? But, please try it, because I think once you've given it a go, you'll be hooked.
And that's the thing. What makes wheelchair basketball so special, do you think?
So I just think that it's that feeling that, it's a level playing field. You just have that opportunity that, you could be playing, on the same court with, people who are hugely different in terms of age, different in terms of their ability or disability, different genders, all of that is just inclusive. And the fact that, you've got complete ends of the spectrum in terms of playing at the grassroots level versus playing at the elite level is that anyone can have a go. And I think that's just fabulous.
Obviously, we've spoken a lot about your career, your life, your involvement in the military and sport, including obviously now as chair of British Wheelchair Basketball. So my final question is, looking back, you've obviously had some incredible and extraordinary experiences, done lots of different things. But how do you reflect on your life so far? And also, what are the key things you think you've learned during that time?
Oh gosh, that's a big question to finish with. How do I reflect on my life? So I think I have taken every opportunity, I think, that I've been given and just grasped it with both hands. And that to me is something that I've had to really push myself to continue to do in my second career. So one of the things that I'm really conscious of is pushing myself outside of my comfort zone and doing things where ordinarily I might have thought, oh, I'm not sure I want to do that. You know, what if I make a mess of it? Or what if I don't do it very well? Or what if I don't come across in a, you know, professional or polished way? And I think that, you know, what I've realized is that people just want to get to know you, and people just want you to give of your best, no matter the environment. So I think my reflection is that, you know, if you work hard and you get involved and you take opportunities, then actually anyone has the opportunity to do whatever they want. And I genuinely believe that. And I sort of try and encourage my children in that same vein, that actually just work hard, have a goal, and then keep working towards it. And then when you fall over, just dust yourself off and do it again. Keep going.
Thanks, Jules. That's all the questions I've got. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just think, you know, this opportunity, you know, we've discussed it for, you know, a few weeks about, you know, how can we make sure that the board are better connected with the membership? And so, Adam, I want to thank you, because this is a brilliant opportunity, great idea to make sure that the membership know, you know, who I am, what I stand for, and how I want to help them moving forward. So we'll just continue to do that, and really just to let people know that, you know, if you've got an idea or if you've got a view, get in touch. You'll find me on social media. I'm always liking and retweeting BWB stuff. So please do connect with me, and I'd love to hear your views.